Right. Hey guys, it's Joe here from JJJ Cards. Welcome back to another video. A slightly different setup for this video. We've got a Q&A. I posted on my story recently asking you guys to send me some questions in. Can be about anything, cards, non-cards, anything related to my life basically, you can ask me. So we've got the Q&A today. I'm actually joined by my host behind the camera, my girlfriend Naomi. I'll probably get you on camera, probably not in this video, but another time. Introduce you to the growing audience. But in the meantime, I'm going to have Naomi behind the camera asking me some questions that you guys sent in, and I'm going to answer them as honestly as possible. I've looked at the questions briefly, but I haven't done any prep. So the answers you'll get are basically my first reactions to the question. So hopefully you find that insightful. And without further ado, I guess we can start with the first question, Nams.
Yeah, so this question is from AJ Cards. So how difficult has it been going full-time? What have been the major challenges?
That's a great question. So I went full-time in February of this year. I think the most difficult period was when I quit my job and then left that sort of first month. Between February and maybe the end of March, it was that sort of teething period. I think, obviously, I'd had the business as a side hustle for a long time. I had lots of stock basically all over the place. Some in my parents' bedroom, or my old bedroom in my parents' house. Some in my new flat here, some in my storage unit. So stock was sort of everywhere. And I think calibrating and basically getting everything in a place where I could take it full time was quite difficult because logistically, like, it was a bit of a nightmare. And I think I found that quite overwhelming. So I had stock basically everywhere. It wasn't that well organised because obviously my job at the time had been my priority. The cards was just a side hustle. And getting all of that organised and in sort of the same like place and getting some processes set up so that I was actually being efficient with my time was the most difficult thing. But I'm slowly getting there. You can see behind me now that this is all brand new really. That's all now set up. My storage unit is nearly there, just need to build some shelves. And everything is out now out my parents' house. So we're getting there and we're getting some processes in place, but it's definitely been that sort of like calibration period that was the most difficult. But now that the processes are starting to get there, it's becoming a bit more easier. And as someone that's quite OCD, I find that quite stressful. So I'm now a bit less stressed about all of that. So that's probably my answer to that question. But I'm now really enjoying it as well.
So our next question is from RP Trading Cards. So what set do you think is the most undervalued in the hobby?
Great question. Thanks for the question, Ronnie. Undervalued is difficult because I think we're at a place now where a lot of the sets that people like are becoming quite appreciated. I'd probably say some of the early Select sets, 2015, 2016 Select. If you look at Prism and Chrome, obviously those are the two biggest brands in football. Those sets are getting their love, especially 2017 Chrome and 2014 and 2016, 2018 Prism. But this 2015, 2016 Select, some of the early Select sets are still somewhat cheap compared to those. And I think, you know, in terms of the long-term growth of the hobby, we're going to look back on some of those early sets in the modern era as quite significant. And I don't really think those are reflected in the prices of a lot of those cards. There's some really nice, like, gold parallels, patches, autos that are quite cheap from those years. And whenever those come across to me at the table at card shows, I always try and buy them, even though the value isn't right there right now, because they're pretty liquid as it is, because there are people collecting them. We just want to see that take off with a few more collectors, I think. So that's probably my answer to that question. Yeah, 2015, 2016 Select, even 2017 Select. Some of that early stuff was great.
Amazing. We've got a nice question here from AJD Sports Cards.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you buy the majority of your stock/cards from?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. I think this is a big thing when it comes to being in a business. It's a lot about like where you get your stock from, and it's about who you know, to be honest with you. I buy pretty much from everywhere. So I buy a lot on eBay. Well, I used to buy a lot on eBay actually. I used to buy a lot on eBay for my cheaper trading card lines, like my Doctor Who, James Bond, the stuff that's much cheaper on my store if you go and look at it now. But that's evolved over the sort of last few months. I now predominantly buy on Instagram and at card shows. I'm probably one of the few people at card shows that will cash most people out if they want them, if they want me to. But I also buy on Instagram. I post things to my story being like, I'm looking to buy. People will send me a message. And another thing I also buy from as well is auction houses. If you look at my last video, my day in the life video, you'll see a bit of an insight into that. That stuff sort of fuels my non-sports trading card lines on my store. So a bit sort of all over the place really, auction houses, Instagram and eBay. But a lot of the success of that is built up from reputation. So the fact that I can buy so much on Instagram is because people know me. They know that I'm trusted, I won't mess them around. And also they'll know that I'll pay a somewhat fair price. Well, hopefully I feel like a fair price. And they'll be you know, they won't have any problems, and I'm sort of trusted and I'll pay them appropriately and quickly. As I evolve my business, I'm actually looking to upgrade that process, but I won't say anything more on that for now.
So we have something here that's a bit less, so isn't quite related to business. Excuse me, because I'm not going to be able to pronounce these guys correctly.
Don't worry.
So rank these strikers 1 to 4. So we've got Suarez, Kane, Benzema?
Yeah.
And then Lewandowski?
Lewandowski. That's a great question. So Suarez, Kane, Lewandowski, and Benzema.
Yes.
Ooh.
1 to 4.
I'm going Suarez first. I am a Liverpool fan, so I'm a bit biased, but I think in terms of pure striking quality, he's the best there. I'm going to go Lewandowski second. I think it could be Kane, but I think in terms of pure clinical numbers, Lewandowski is obviously up there, and he's slightly underappreciated, I think, because he's not like a sexy striker. He's more of an efficient striker. I think Kane's a very close third and Benzema fourth, and I know that sounds crazy given Benzema won a Ballon d'Or, but I also think Benzema benefited from basically an amazing season, but I wouldn't say he's consistently been as hot as someone like Suarez, Lewandowski or Kane. I probably would have had Kane higher if he'd won a bit more. I know that is a bit of a cheap argument to say, but there are some moments, you know, thinking about the Euros against France, there are some moments where he didn't quite perform, whereas Lewandowski tends to do it on the big stage. His Champions League record's amazing. So yeah, I'm going Suarez, Lewandowski, Kane, Benzema, but I appreciate that. It's probably going to cause some debate in the comments.
Perfect. So we've got a nice question here from Callum. So what apps or websites do you use to track accurate card sales history?
I use 130 Point predominantly. I probably should be using Card Ladder. Card Ladder is like a paid service where you can track cards a bit more effectively than 130 Point. But right now I predominantly use there. One thing I always say though is you don't want to just go by 130 Point, because just because a card sold for something in the past doesn't mean it's now worth the same in the future. So I also often check what's on eBay as well. So for example, let's use Kane as an example. Let's say Kane's got a card that's sold for £20 on 130 Point, but the only available options on eBay are 2 at £70 each. It's not necessarily mean it's worth £20. You might want to list it at 30 or 40. So use a combination of them all if you can, but Card Ladder is something that I'm probably going to have to look at now that I'm full time. But 130 Point with eBay is definitely my sort of areas of focus.
So I really like this question from Shotty Collects. So I want to start a card resale business tomorrow. What do I need to do? Shout
out Brad, that's a great question. So I would say decide what you want to focus on. We're now at a point with the trading card market where it's so like broad. You can have there's trading card lines for pretty much anything. You know, Marvel, Disney, sports, across the board, non-sports, you name it, they've probably got a trading card line. So focus on what you want to do. I think, speaking from experience, I've always been quite passionate about offering stuff at all ranges and all price levels for any person. So if you go onto my store, you'll see lots of soccer singles between £5 and £50. You'll see some cards that are over £1,000, but you also see £1 and £2 cards from the Doctor Who or James Bond or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And my focus has always been to sort of have an availability of cards for any collector at any price point, and that's always been sort of my focus when I'm buying stock. It can quite quickly become quite overwhelming if you're buying stock, you know, non-stop, and you don't really have a focus. So try and find stuff that fits into with the focus. And I tend to say that you should pick that based on the stuff that you know the most about. The more information you have about stuff, the better you are going to be at buying and selling it. So that's where I'd focus, and then slowly build up over time. You're not going to be flipping £1,000 cards on day one. I didn't start buying £1,000 cards until probably year 4 or 5 of my side hustle. The first 4 years I was grafting through match tax, adrenaline, cheaper card lines. You want to do that grunt work before you do the sort of more sexy, in quotation marks, big cards. But even now, as someone who's quite well established, I still find I get as much momentum from selling my lower end stuff than I do selling my higher end stuff, because that keeps the bills, keeps the lights on, because that consistently sells, even though you're not doing as big profits at the time. So that's where I'd focus on, but also I should say focus on stuff you like as well. You'll never get bored of stuff you like. Don't focus on stuff you don't like, because you will get bored of it.
Perfect. So we've got a couple of questions here from Tommy Collects here. I'm going to start you off with a nice and easy one.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you based? Yeah.
I'm based in Southeast London. It means I can get to most card shows quite easily, although I do want to get to some up north more this year. I missed out on Yorkshire, which looked great, and also Manchester, so obviously stuff going on there. So that's my answer to that question. Obviously quite an easy one, but looking to go up more north for shows as well this year.
So what do you mainly collect? Sports, figures, eras?
So I'm a bit naughty really when it comes to collecting. I sort of buy just what I like, and that's bad advice because you end up spending quite a lot of money on stuff. I started with Match Tax and Adrenaline when I was a kid, and I've still got some of my binder sets, and I still like filling out binder sets. So I've got some of the trading card lines you see on my store, like Doctor Who Battles in Time and James Bond 007 Commander Spy cards, are 2 sets that I still collect myself, and I've got albums of. In terms of football, obviously I'm a Liverpool fan, so I collect predominantly Liverpool cards, but I quite like the pre-war stuff. I think I mentioned this before. So I've got a little Alex Ricebeck PC, one of our early legends. I'll put some pictures on screen now of Alex Ricebeck and some of the cards. Which means that because it's so niche, I'm not always buying him. So that's probably my main player or figure PC. And then I've got my set collections going to sort of keep that, satisfy that itch, scratch that itch when I'm buying or selling cards that I want to keep, while I can, build out those sets instead and scratch the itch.
I feel like you potentially maybe answered these 2 last questions there, but what is your favourite all-time set, and who do you mainly PC?
Are those both Tommy as well?
Yeah.
So Alex Ricebeck's probably my main PC. My favourite all-time set is definitely 2017 Chrome. I know 2014 Prism gets a lot of love. I think 2017 Chrome is actually better, looks better aesthetically, and it's got the the Liverpool cards in it, which I love, and the Trent Alexander-Arnold as well, especially that 2017 Chrome. Trent Alexander-Arnold is a big favourite card of mine. So that's probably my favourite set. But obviously that's me being appealing to the audience. There are some pre-war sets that I love. Cope Solace is probably one of my favourites. Cope Solace and a couple of others, but I won't go into those because most of you don't know what they are. But yeah, that's probably my answer to those questions. Thanks for the questions, Tommy.
So we've got a nice one here from Champ Vanderford.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning on coming to the Soo Expo this year?
Yes, I am, Champ. Thanks for the question. I'm in Chicago this year, and I'll be looking to go to the Soo. I'm not sure how many days is it. Is it every day, or is it only certain days? But whenever it's on, I'll be there. I've heard great things. Obviously want to meet loads of you American guys, be in the room for all the soccer stuff. So absolutely I'll be there. I'm not going to be setting up, I'll just be taking some cards with me and walking around and meeting you guys. But it'd be great to see you, hopefully go for a pint and some food as well.
So taking you back down memory lane here from SCT cards.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your first ever card, if you can remember that far back?
Whoa. So the first ever set I collected was 2007 Match Tax, so the red binder with the black Man of the Match cards. I can't remember the first card I ever bought, but the first card I ever bought on eBay was a John Arnorisa Man of the Match from that set. It's still kind of one of my Grail cards in a way because it was the first card I ever bought on eBay. Bought it for £2 maybe, but I couldn't wait for it to come in the post. I remember asking my dad every day if it come for me in the post when I was at school. So that's probably my answer to that question. I'll put a picture of that on screen now. Not the most expensive card, but definitely one of the most memorable for me, and a great set to this day in my opinion.
He also had another question, what is your favourite card that you currently own?
Oof, that's a tough one. Thanks for the question.
Maybe top 3?
No, I can answer top 1, I reckon. I would say favourite card. I mean, I've just sold it, so this is slightly counterintuitive, but it probably would be the Pele Alifa Bolliger, Pele's rookie from the 1958 World Cup in Sweden. It was just so iconic to have it. I've now sold it because now I'm going full time. I need to think more about liquidity and selling stuff, which is a shame in a way. But I'd probably say that is my favourite card. I still own it right now. I've sold it, but I still own it right now. So technically it's not left the door yet. That's probably my favourite card. Obviously hugely iconic, and it was a big milestone for me when I traded for it. Because I've been working hard to get to a card of that sort of power or that sort of, importance for a long time. So that's probably my answer to that question. Thanks for those.
Quite similar to that previous question then, from Canvas Cards. What is the one card you can't shift since you bought it?
That's a great question, because it's all well and good talking about the wins, but you've got to talk about the ones which don't go as well. I'd probably say my answer to that question is a Giuseppe Miezza. He was an early Italian legend. I picked up one of his rookie cards from a collector in Italy, probably 3 or 4 years ago. I'll put a picture on screen now there. But obviously now that I've gone full time, I'm looking to sort of sell out of some of my more bigger cards. And this is one that I've had struggle selling because I can't really get it graded. The Italian sets are really badly documented in SGC and PSA. Although they think it's real, aren't comfortable with knowing which set it's from and won't slap it if they don't have a set. So that's been hard to grade, and therefore it's been hard to move raw. I think it will sell eventually. It's an iconic card of an iconic player from a rookie year, but it's definitely been tough to move, and I think that says a lot about the liquidity of pre-war. And I've mentioned this before on the channel, but you need to be careful when you're buying pre-war because yes, you can get good returns on stuff, but also it's hard to move because the collector base is smaller, and you're almost always selling to collectors, not speculators. So something to bear in mind if you ever look at pre-war. That probably answers that question. Giuseppe Miezza, early pre-war. I mean, I don't know the set, so that tells you all you need to know.
Perfect. So moving off from football a little bit, we've got a question here from SE Cards UK. So how do you start a Star Wars card collection? Nice.
I mean, I'm a big Star Wars guy, as lots of you know. I've been buying and selling Star Wars cards for a while now. I've got loads listed in my store actually this week. Honestly, you want to look at America for Star Wars cards. There's just way more over there, and so they're much cheaper. Obviously, I don't collect Star Wars cards, I just buy and sell them really, but if I was to collect them, I would be looking at buying from people in the Facebook groups in America, the Discord groups in America, because that's where loads of the cards are. I think a good way to go is always obviously collecting a character because you want to keep it focused, like I mentioned in the previous question. You don't want to go too broad, keep it focused, and you can get lots of good stuff in Star Wars in America. And in terms of my business, I buy a lot of my bulk from from America for Star Wars because it's just available over there and it's therefore cheaper, and there's less of it over here.
Perfect. So we have a question here from Alex Moulton. So do you stream / have any plans to stream or whatnot?
Good question. Thanks for the question, Alex. Yes is the short answer to that question. I don't know when, I don't know on what platform, to be honest with you, but at some point I will be. I think I've come to the conclusion that obviously I never wanted to do that when I was doing a full-time job because I just didn't have the time in the evenings. When I was packing orders in the evenings and stuff, I didn't have time to do a live stream. But now that I'm full-time, that's something I can definitely explore, and it's a good way of moving through stuff quite quickly. And I do feel like I have good stock as well. So I think that's definitely something I'm going to be doing in the future. So watch this space, I suppose.
So following on from that actually, from Bill's cards, what was the thing that pushed you to make this full-time?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think that was one thing that made me go full-time. I think I was obviously working a full-time job. I was working in politics in London, in political consultancy, and I really enjoyed it, but I came to the kind of conclusion that the trading card market is really growing, right? We've got the Fnatic store just opened in Regent Street. We've got stuff happening all the time. The London Card Show have just announced that they're going to be moving to the EXL, which is amazing news. So now's the sort of time really to sort of go in and grab that. And I liked my job, but I'm 23, I'm still young, I don't really have any financial responsibilities above, pay my rent. I don't have any kids or a mortgage or anything like that. So now's sort of the time to take the jump and take a risk and see what happens. And that's sort of what made me do it. And then made me quit my job. Obviously we're still early days, we don't know how that's going to pan out yet, but so far so good. And I would just say, I guess, obviously not that I'm a wise guru, but it's always good to take a risk every now and then, I think, because you never know what's going to happen.
Love that. So we have a good question here from Kinnell Cards.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the soccer card market at in 5 years' time?
Thanks for the question, Kinnell Cards, and also the support of the channel, I appreciate it. That's a good one. I think, obviously, this is always speculation. It's always hard to say and know for sure because no one really knows. I think where I see it, how it's grown in the last 2 years, obviously looking at some evidence, where the collector base has grown. So before, when it was first taking off, we had loads and loads of speculators come in, buy cards and then sell them quite quickly. And there wasn't really any collectors to prop up the market. But over the course of the last 2 years, we've definitely seen much more collectors come in. I mean, at card shows for me, I'm selling to predominantly collectors now, not speculators, which is great. So I think if we continue on that trend and more collectors come into the hobby over the next 5 years, we're going to see a real growth in the liquidity of cards. And I think the biggest issue for soccer versus potentially American sports is that it's slightly less liquid because there's less people in it. And as a business, that's obviously tough. You don't want to be sitting on stock for a long time. So I think we're going to see more collectors come in, stuff move quicker. And as you get more liquidity, you're obviously going to inevitably attract more people into the hobby because there's going to be more money there. and that's going to be great for all of us. So that's where I see it going: more collectors, more liquidity, and obviously that's going to be hopefully bolstered by some of the next events coming up. Obviously, got the 2026 World Cup in America, which will be huge, but also generally football is just growing across the globe, and we're seeing more now Middle Eastern buyers as well, and obviously Asia is a huge market. So exciting times ahead for sure.
He also wanted to know, what was the last set that you completed? Any plans to complete any more?
So I probably would answer that with a previous question. It's really niche, but I was collecting a variation of the James Bond 007 spy card set. Basically, this is a James Bond set from 2008 that I collected as a kid, but before they released the national set, they actually released a test set. Basically, it was a smaller version of the national set, numbered to 80, and they only released it in certain areas of the country in the UK, so it's really hard to find, and I recently completed my test set. The last card I needed is really hard to find because they didn't produce it or didn't print it as part of the test set because they forgot to, basically, made an error. So they had to print it after the release of the test set when the national set had come out, and it made it really hard to find because there's only sort of 5 or 10 that exist. I put a picture on screen now of the set. I know that's a really niche answer, but that's probably my answer. It took me a long time to complete, but something like that, because it's so niche, makes it really fun to collect because it's really hard, and I like sort of big challenges when it comes to that. In terms of future sets, probably none at the moment because I'm focusing on the business and obviously growing that, and I get sort of my kick when in terms of cards from there, buying and selling those and looking at the cards that come through the door. But I suppose there's always going to be sets that I want to collect in the future. I probably want to look at some of the Liverpool team sets as well. Definitely some of the Chrome. I was tempted to collect the Liverpool Chrome set which came out last year, but looking at sets like that for sure in the future, I think is probably where I'm going to be putting my set collecting itch. That's probably where I'm going to be looking at it. Thanks for the question.
So we got this question from Hobart Trading Card Co.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your best ever pickup and worst ever? And they want you to be honest.
Thanks for the question, Hobart. Appreciate it, mate. Probably worst ever pickup was a Pele Bremer from 1958. So he has these rookie cards from this German coffee set in 1958. I bought one raw from a German collector in the peak of the sort of boom for about $2,500, and I think I sold it a year later for maybe £400–500. So I got absolutely killed on that. My girlfriend in the background is shocked by that. Best in the best, probably a George Best that I graded raw. I bought a George Best rookie card from 1964 Barrett for I think just under £2,000 and graded it and it got a 6.5, and I think at the time it was worth maybe 6 or 7. So it's a decent little flip on that one. That's probably my best ever one. I eventually traded that away for the Pele Liverpool, which I mentioned earlier. So yeah, that's probably my biggest win. But my biggest loss was definitely the Pele, which is a big loss.
So we've got a question from That Collector 7.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'll let you have a little water break there.
Go on, what's the question?
So what inspired you to start collecting and begin a YouTube journey?
Good question. I actually started YouTube just because I wanted to talk about cards, really. I mean, I'm passionate about it. You guys have probably watched some of my videos before. I sort of ramble on about stuff. I'm really into cards. I love them. So I just wanted to sort of a platform to talk about it and share some of my experiences. And now that I've become full-time and I'm running a business, I'm quite keen on taking people along that journey with me, showing you what it's like running a trading card business full-time, sort of the goods and the bad. That's what I'm really passionate about now, and in terms of where I want to focus the channel. Obviously, I'm going to be doing lots of fun content as well, like you see with Dan and stuff like that before, but card shows and business content I think is where I most enjoy and what I most love. So that's why I really know I'm passionate about YouTube. And I'm really honoured to have hit 1,000 subscribers recently. That was a big milestone for me. I know it's not that big really in the context of YouTube, but you know, we haven't got a huge YouTube scene here in the UK, and that's quite a big number. So I'm really pleased about that. And I'm just looking to grow it, share my experiences about running my business, and yeah, we'll see where it goes. Thanks for the question.
So coming off that a little bit, from 66 cards, how did you make the jump from selling smaller cards for smaller profits to bigger cards?
Great question. Thanks for the question, mate. And I appreciate the support of the channel. It's just, you just got to grind, honestly. I know that's a really cliche answer, really Gary Vee answer, but you just got to grind. I spent years selling small cards, and then I only recently got into big cards, probably 2 or 3 years ago, but I've been doing the business. I started when I was a kid, when I was in the playground, so it's been going technically like what, 13 years? I started it in 2012, when I was 12 years old. So it's really grown since then, obviously, but pulling in that work, you know, those late nights buying and selling £1 to £10 cards really does make it worth it, because in the long run you build up cash flow, build up liquidity, and you build up your knowledge, so that once you have that knowledge you can go in and invest in a few big cards and hopefully make some good returns. But it's about patience, putting in the work, and enjoying the process as well, because obviously I've still got a long way to go, but the cards that I sell now I wouldn't be able to sell if I wasn't selling those cheaper cards before. So enjoy that process as well.
Nice. We've got a really good question here from Locks Cards. So what different avenues of income will you be focusing on for your business? Is it all going to be card related?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that question in the short term. I'm still hashing that out and I'm still putting together my business plan. And in the short term to medium term, obviously I want to grow the car business itself, continue selling more cars, increase the volume of which I'm doing it, and also the scale, obviously. But in the sort of medium to long term, obviously I want to build out the content side of what I'm doing. That's really like small as it currently is now, but that's something I want to build out, and you know, maybe I'll be able to monetize that at some point. Who knows? But other than that, probably not for now. Maybe in the longer term for sure, but for now, just scaling the business, the day-to-day business, and continuing to push out videos for you guys to enjoy. That's what I love doing, and that's why I quit my job, to do what I love. So keep doing that, and we'll see where it goes. In the longer term, who knows? There's potentially going to be opportunities as the UK market grows overall, but for now, yeah, that's where I'm looking for, to be honest with you.
So we've got a few questions here from Joey Cards.
Thanks, Joey.
I'm going to try and mix these up a little bit. So we're going to start with something a bit fun.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your favourite let's try that again. Who is your favourite non-Liverpool player currently?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to presume you mean currently playing. So I'd probably go with who I love watching. Do you know what? This is a bit of a left of the field answer, but probably João Neves. He played against us in the Champions League, Liverpool, and dominated our midfield. And Arsenal just lost in the first leg last night to PSG, and he was unbelievable. I've got a real thing for silky midfielders, and he is so silky, so good on the ball, great vision, so composed. So probably João Neves. I know that's a bit of a weird answer, but I love watching players like that. I did watch the Copa del Rey final as well on the weekend, and Pedri was unbelievable. So Pedri's probably up there as well. I really love sort of those midfielder types who are really clean on the ball. And Liverpool have got some great players, but we've never really had, or for a long time, had a player like that. So I love watching those sort of players, and often they come from the Spanish leagues, but the Portuguese league as well is full of them as well.
Nice. So I hope you're going to answer how I think you're going to answer to this. Have you been watching any series lately? If so, are there any that you particularly enjoy?
Yes, so we're currently watching The Last of Us. That's probably the main one we're watching, and that's an absolute corker of a series. If you haven't watched that, it's so good. We've just finished episode 3 of season 2. I think episode 4 is going to be quite juicy, so that's a great series. One of my guilty pleasures, though, is probably a show called SWAT. It's on, is it on NBC or CBS or something like that?
Something like that.
One of the American channels, but
It's on
Netflix. And my girlfriend and I, when we just want to sort of decompress, we love watching a bit of SWAT. They're pretty like silly episodes, but they're good fun. You know, see some crime fighting, see some sort of punching. So I say SWAT as well. And I'm also watching my lunchtime binge show is also Superstore right now, which I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised by. I wasn't going to watch it.
Recommended it.
You recommended it, but I thought it was a bit silly. But actually, it's quite good. So, you know, they're only 20 minutes episodes with lunch, or, you know, when I've got 20 minutes downtime, I'll probably put one of those on. I'm enjoying that right now. Although, no sitcoms will ever beat The Office or The Inbetweeners.
Or Friends.
Friends is below those two, I think.
Oh, let's not get into this. So we've got a couple of questions from Joey about card shows.
Yeah, thanks, Joey.
So what sort of costs are involved if you wanted to be a vendor at the card show?
Yeah, this is a good question because people underestimate the cost of setting up. You've got the table fee, the cost of setting up at the show itself. You've got travel, accommodation if it's going to be more than one night, food as well. So you've definitely got to factor that all in for shows. Obviously, if you're doing it as a hobby, you probably just want to break even. I think that's what some of my people alongside me do at the car shows. If they break even on the shows, they're happy because obviously they have a good time. Open a few boxes maybe, sell a few cards, and then obviously break even with after all the food and possibly beer and things like that. So those are the main costs you've got to think about. But obviously with shows as well, like a lot of it is prep. So the last few shows I've wasted money on buying top loaders and sleeves because I keep forgetting to bring them. So stuff like that as well, you've got to think about. Then there's also small things like pricing stickers, display cases. If you want flick through boxes, you might want some nice flick through boxes as well. So there's other costs as well that you need to think about. Depends on how you set up. But you will almost always underestimate the cost of setting up a card show. It's almost always more than you think. So factor in a bit of wiggle room if you're ever going to budget for one of them, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how much prep do you do looking at recent comps before a show, or is it more on the fly?
Loads. The more effort you put in, the more you get out of card shows. If you overcomp stuff, it just won't sell. People won't, especially in the UK, they're a bit too awkward to negotiate too heavily. So you get out of shows what you put in. I always say this. So if you comp stuff really well and make sure it's always bang on, you'll definitely get pick up. I think a lot of people who don't do as well at card shows either have their cards priced too high or don't have prices at all, in which case that puts people off. So the more effort you put in, the more you get out of it. And I think for me, even with the flick throughs, I think I've shown this in a previous video, there's kind of like hundreds and thousands of cards there in a way. But I go through all of them individually, obviously not the £1 or £2 ones, but the £5 or £10 ones, and make sure those are well comped because they'll sell if they're well comped because I know they're good stuff. So the more effort, the better, in my opinion.
I'm not really sure what this means, but I'm sure you will. So, would you prefer a 1 out of 1 non-auto or a 5 auto, both the same player?
I'm guessing that means out of 5, like /5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the 1 of 1 non-auto or an out of 5 auto, same player. Definitely 1 of 1. I know an auto definitely brings more value to a card, but 1 of 1s are very easy to sell, especially if you can find collectors. And as well, because there's no comps almost all the time, almost most of the time, you're going to be able to dictate your own price. And there's a sort of someone looking to make a bit of money. That's obviously a great opportunity. So I say 1 of 1s, but it does depend on the set as well. Because, for example, a team set, you might want an out of 5 auto because the player is bigger. Like for example, liquid autos, like players like I think speaking from Liverpool, like a Gerrard player, for example, like a Gerrard, for example. Very liquid, but a prism or a chrome 1 of 1, those superfractors, they sell very, very, very quickly. So I'd say overall probably a 1 of 1, but good question.
And then we got our final question.
Final question?
Oh no, very sad. So from EAB Skills, what's your thoughts on the PSA 9 or below market being often sold for less than raw?
Thanks for the question, Ewan. Wishing you speedy recovery as well. Good question. I think that what this means basically, in terms of taking your question forward, is be really careful what you're grading, because you want to be certain that you're going to get a PSA 10, and if you're not, you want the card to be of a sort of adequate rarity that it's going to be worth someone's time buying a PSA 9, thinking of 1 of 1s, low numbered, things like that. I think it's really going to impact how people grade, and probably going to see less of the sort of cheaper slabs readily available because they're just not worth grading anymore. Where especially now that PSA have tightened the restrictions on grading. So that's probably answering that question. Hopefully that sort of answers your question. It's going to increase selective grading. It's going to mean that higher end cards are worth grading, whereas lower end cards are now less worth grading. So it's probably going to impact how you sell at shows as well, because now I focus a lot of my raw on that more lower to mid end, because I know that grading that is probably not going to be worth my time, but other people obviously want that for their binders or their PCs, so it makes it worth their time. So it's just going to change people's strategy and approach to grading, I think. I think there is one more question, Nams, if you swap all the way to the right onto that black photo. Keep going. There you are.
Oh, sorry.
I think Harry sent me a DM with a question. Sports card Harry.
Yeah, so how long have you been building to go full-time in cards, and what was the catalyst to quitting your job and going all in?
So I've answered the second part to that question already, so thanks for the question, Harry. In terms of the first part, which was about what prep was involved, right?
So how long have you been building to going full-time
Yeah,
in cards?
how long I've been building. So I've had the side hustle for a long time. Obviously I quit my job when I was 23, but I started my business when I was 12. And obviously it was very, very, very small for the first 5 to 10 years really, but it's grown in the last 5 roughly, I suppose. Obviously I had quite a good amount of stock. I'd say probably enough stock to make it worth sort of a full-time income. In terms of selling that stock would be worth a full-time income. Obviously have a bit of a social media presence if that's possible, a bit of a reputation that's positive because you want people to know you're a trusted buyer, trusted seller. And then also there's always going to be an element of risk as well though, you know, taking the jump, because as much as you can prep for it, it's always going to be a risk, it's always an unknown. So there's an element of that as well. So I think I was probably 60% prepared, 40% willing to take the risk. But I had a bit of a good reputation, I suppose, and not a lot of stock already. Like I'd been there and done it on eBay already. I've been built up over 3,500 feedback before I even quit my job. And I've done loads of sales privately as well. So having that sort of foundation is definitely important. I wouldn't jump into it cold. You want to have a foundation before you go into it. So thanks for the question, Harry. And I think that wraps us up.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for watching, guys. Hopefully you found that interesting and insightful. Very, very chill video today, very different as well. But thank you all so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe. I try to be as honest as possible. Hopefully you found that interesting. Obviously any follow-up questions, drop them down below and I'll reply to them. But thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.